Good evening and welcome. This is the Reverend Bob Sandine, who is welcome you to our 11th consecutive production of Child's Christmas in Wales. And Merry Christmas and Good Yule. I would like to remind you that in the previous 10 years, we always had this as a Welsh supper theater event. And during those previous 10 years, Anna Foster provided us a wonderful Welsh supper at each and every one of these occasions. The players are so sad, as is everyone at Trinity, that Anna died rather suddenly this past week. And so we'd like to dedicate this evening's performance to Anna Foster, our fellow thespian and sister in the faith. She was an amazing thespian. And now we'd like to begin with a Welsh Blessing that will be offered by our assistant rector, Heidi Thorson. Heidi, are you there somewhere?
I am. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
This is a Welsh blessing. Bad within board, o ffrain ne, bod idi fored im mobhe, benditia nor and Heimburg ni, agar inuleta gaida thi. Be at our table, O King of Heaven, may you be exalted everywhere. Give your blessing to our food, and let us feast with you. Let us pray. Loving God, we thank you for the traditions that hold us together in this season, not only the traditions of our faith, but also the traditions that are specific to this church and in our tradition at Trinity of a Child's Christmas in Wales. And we pray especially for all of the people in our community who are tied together through this tradition, most especially Anna. We thank you for her love and her humor and all of the ways that she will live on in this evening's performance and in the cups of wassail that we are enjoying. And I pray that she would be present with us tonight, that she would be smiling with you, and that all of us would rejoice in your love and your community and your fellowship. And we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
And thank you so much, Heidi. We're so grateful for you remembering Anna for us and with us. Anyway, next, during the past Child's Christmas evenings, we always included as part of the evening singing together Christmas carols. And we know that that doesn't work very, very well on Zoom to sing, together. So instead, we've been very, very lucky to have two of Trinity's great soloists who are going to sing some Christmas carols for us, two before the play and two at the end of the evening. And those wonderful carolers are Carolyn Craig, our senior organ scholar, and Kyle Pika, our wonderful singer and communications manager. So at this point, let's begin with, I think, with Carolyn.
Thank you. Ding dong merrily on high, in heaven the bells are ringing. Ding dong merrily the sky is rimmed with angels singing. Glory, Hosanna in excelsis. Glory.
Brava, brava. Carolyn, we are so lucky to have you in this parish. Thank you for being here. And now we're also very, very lucky to have Kyle, who's such a great singer, as well as such a great communication person. Kyle, would you sing next, please? Can't see Kyle.
What child is this who laid to rest on Mary's lap is whom angels greet with anthems sweet, while shepherds watch our King. This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him, Lord, the babe, the Son of Mary. Why lies he in such mean estate, where ox and ass are feeding? Good Christian, fear for sinners here, the silent word is pleading. This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him, Lord, the babe, the Son of Mary. So bring him incense, gold, and myrrh. Come, peasant king, to own him. The King of kings salvation brings. Let loving hearts enthrone him. This is Christ the King, whom shepherds guard and angels sing. Haste, haste to bring him, Lord, the babe, the Son of
Bravo. Bravo, Kyle. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. That was beautiful, Kyle. And now it's time for us to begin the Child's Christmas. And before that, I need to ask the members of the audience to help us out by doing a few things on your screen. First of all, I'd like you all to make sure that you have muted yourself if you haven't already. Secondly, I'd like to ask you to, if you can, go up to the upper right-hand corner where it says View and turn yourself onto Speaker View. So you'll be seeing the speaker who each time speaks a part in the play. Speaker View. And finally, if you wouldn't mind, to also go down at the bottom of your screen and push Stop Video so we don't see your picture while the play is going on. That's great that you're all doing that. And then finally, I would like to ask the cast to be sure and unmute yourself. Cast, everybody unmute. Okay. If that's all done, let me say the Trinity players are very happy to present to you A Child's Christmas in Wales by Dylan Thomas, adapted for us by our own Neil Olson. Begin.
Wassail, wassail, all over the town, our toast it is white and our rail it is brown. Our bowl it is made of the white maple tree, with a wassailing bowl we'll drink to thee. One Christmas was so much like another in those years around the Seatown corner now and out of all sound, except the distant speaking of voices I sometimes hear a moment before sleep, that I can never remember whether it snowed for 6 days and 6 nights when I was 12, or whether it snowed for 12 days and 12 nights when I was 6.
All the Christmases rolled down to the two-tongued sea like a cold and headlong moon, bundling down the sky that was our street. And they stop at the rim of the ice-edged, fish-freezing waves.
And I plunge my hands into the snow and bring out whatever I can find. In goes my hand into that wool-white bell-tongued ball of holidays resting at the rim of the carol-singing sea, and out come Mrs. Prothero and the fireman.
It was on the afternoon of the Christmas Eve.
And I was in Mrs. Prothero's garden waiting for cats with her son, Jim.
It was snowing. It was always snowing on Christmas.
December in my memory is white as lapis, though there were no reindeers.
But there were cats, patient, cold, and callous. Our hands wrapped in socks, we waited to snowball the cats. Sleek and long as jaguars and horrible whiskered, spitting and snarling, they would slink and slidle over the white back garden walls. And the lynx-eyed hunters,
Jim and I, fur-capped and moccasin trappers from Hudson Bay off Mumbles Road, would hurl our deadly snowballs at the green of their eyes.
The wise cats never appeared.
We were so still, Eskimo-footed Arctic marksmen in the muffling silence of the eternal snows, eternal ever since Wednesday, that we never heard Mrs. Prothero's first cry from her igloo at the bottom of the garden. Or if we heard it at all, it was to us, like the far-off challenge of our enemy and prey, the neighbor's polar cat. But soon the voices grew louder. Fire!
cried Mrs. Prothero as she beat the dinner gong.
We ran down the garden with the snowballs in our arms toward the house. And smoke indeed was pouring out of the dining room. And the gong was bombilating, and Mrs. Prothero was announcing ruin like a town crier in Pompeii.
This was better than all the cats in Wales, standing on the wall in a row. We bounded into the house laden with snowballs and stopped at the open door of the smoke-filled room.
Something was burning all right. Perhaps it was Mr. Prothero, who always slept there after midday dinner with a newspaper over his face. But he was standing in the middle of the room saying,
"A fine Christmas."
And smacking at the smoke with a slipper.
"Call the fire brigade!
cried Mrs. Prothero as she beat the gong.
They won't be there.
Said Mr. Prothero.
It's Christmas.
There was no fire to be seen, only clouds of smoke, and Mr. Prothero standing in the middle of them, waving his slipper as though he were conducting.
Do something.
He said, and we threw all our snowballs into the smoke.
I think we missed Mr. Prothero.
And ran out of the house to the telephone box.
Let's call the police as well.
Jim said.
And the ambulance. And Ernie Jenkins. He likes fires.
But we only called the fire brigade, and soon the engine came, and 3 tall men in helmets brought a hose into the house, and Mr. Prothero got out just in time before they turned it on.
Nobody could have had a noisier Christmas Eve.
And when the firemen turned off the hose and were standing in the wet, smoky room, Jim's aunt, Miss Prothero, came downstairs and peered in at them.
Jim and I waited very quietly to hear what she would say to them. She said the right thing, always.
She looked at the 3 tall firemen in their shining helmets, standing among the smoke and cinders and dissolving snowballs, and she said,
Would you like anything to read?
Years and years ago, when I was a boy, when there were wolves in Wales.
And birds the color of red flannel petticoats whisked past the harp-shaped hills, when we sang and wallowed all night and day in caves that smelt like Sunday afternoons in damp front farmhouse parlors, and we chased with the jawbones of deacons, the English and the bears, before the motor car, before the wheel, before the Duchess-faced horse, when we rode the daft and happy hills, bareback. It snowed and it snowed.
but here a small boy says,
It snowed last year, too. I made a snowman and my brother knocked it down. And I knocked my brother down. And then we had tea.
But that was not the same snow, I say.
Our snow was not only shaken from whitewash buckets down the sky, it came shawling out of the ground and swam and drifted out of the arms and hands and bodies of the trees. Snow grew overnight on the roofs of houses, like a pure and grandfather moss, minutely ivied the walls and settled on the postman, opening the gate like a dumb, numb thunderstorm of white, torn Christmas cards.
Were there postmen then, too?
With sprinkling eyes and wind-cherried noses, on spread frozen feet, they crunched up to the doors and mittened on them manfully. But all the children could hear was the ringing of bells.
You mean that the postman went rat-a-tat-tat and the doors rang?
I mean that the bells the children could hear were inside them.
I only hear thunder sometimes, never bells.
Oh, there were church bells too.
Inside them?
No, in the bad black snow-white belfries tugged by bishops and storks.
and they rang their tidings over the bandaged town, over the frozen foam of the powder and ice cream hills, over the crackling sea. It seemed that all the churches boomed for joy under my window, and the weathercocks crew for Christmas on our fence.
Get back to the postman.
Oh, they were just ordinary postmen, fond of walking and dogs and Christmas and the snow. knocked on the doors with blue knuckles.
Huh. Ours has got a black knocker.
And then they stood in the white welcome mat in the little drifted porches and huffed and puffed, making ghosts with their breath, and jogged from foot to foot like small boys wanting to go out.
And then the presents?
And then the presents after the Christmas box.
And the cold postman, with a rose on his button nose, tingled down the tea tray slithered run of the chilly, glinting hill. He went in his icebound boots like a man on fishmonger's slabs. He wagged his bag like a frozen camel's hump, dizzily turned the corner on one foot, and by God, he was gone.
Get back to the presents.
There were the useful presents.
Engulfing mufflers of the old coach days, and mittens made for giant sloths, zebra scarves of a substance like silky gum that could be tug-of-war down to the galoshes, blinding tam-o'-shanters like patchwork tea cozies, and bunny-suited busbies and baklavas for victims of head-shrinking tribes.
From aunts who always wore wool next to the skin, there were mustached and rasping vests that made you wonder why the aunts had any skin left at all. And once I had a little crocheted nosebag from an aunt now, alas, no longer whinnying with us.
And pictureless books in which small boys, though warned with quotations not to, would skate on Farmer Giles's pond, and did, and drowned. And books that told me everything about the wasp.
Except, why?
Go on, the useless presents.
Bags of moist and many-colored jelly babies, and a folded flag, and a false nose, and a tram conductor's cap with a machine that punched tickets and rang a bell. Never a catapult. Once, by mistake, there was no one could explain a little hatchet, and a celluloid duck that made, when you passed it, a most unduck-like sound. A mewing moo that an ambitious cat might make who wishes to be a cow.
And a painting book in which I could make the grass and the trees and the sea and the animals any color I pleased.
And still the dazzling sky blue sheep are grazing in the red field under the rainbow-billed and pea-green birds.
Hard-boileds, toffee, fudge, and all sorts, crunches, cracknels, humbugs, glaciers, marzipan, and butter Welsh for the Welsh.
And troops of bright tin soldiers who, if they could not fight, could always run. And snakes and families, and happy ladders, and easy hobby games for little engineers, complete with instructions.
Oh, easy for Leonardo.
And a whistle to make the dogs bark, to wake up the old man next door, to make him beat on the wall with his stick, and to shake our pictures off the wall.
And a packet of cigarettes. You put one in your mouth, and you stood at the corner of the street, and you waited for hours in vain for an old lady to scold you for smoking a cigarette, and then, with a smirk, you ate it.
Then it was breakfast under the balloons.
Were there uncles like in our house?
There are always uncles at Christmas. The same uncle. And on Christmas morning, with dog-disturbing whistle and sugar fags, I would scour the Swatch town for news of the little world and find
Always a dead bird by the post office or by the white deserted swings, perhaps a robin, all but one of his fires out. Men and women wading or scooping back from chapel with taproom noses and wind-bust cheeks, all albinos, huddled their stiff black jarring feathers against the irreligious snow.
Mistletoe hung from the gas brackets in all the front parlors. There was sherry and walnuts and bottled beer and crackers by the dessert spoons, and cats in their furabouts watched the fires, and the high heap fires spat, all ready for the chestnuts and the mulling pokers.
Some few large men sat in front parlors with their collars out. Uncles almost certainly trying their new cigars, holding them out judiciously at arm's length, returning them to their mouths, coughing, then holding them out again as though waiting for the explosion. And some few small aunts, not wanted in the kitchen, nor anywhere else for that matter, sat on the very edge of their chairs, poised and brittle, afraid to break, like faded cups and saucers.
Not many those mornings trod the piling streets. An old man, always fawn-bouldered, yellow-gloved, and at this time of year with spats of snow, would take his constitutional to the white bowling green and back, as he would take it wet or fine on Christmas Day or Doomsday. Sometimes two hale young men with big pipes blazing, no overcoats and wind-blown scarves, would trudge unspeaking down to the forlorn sea to work up an appetite.
To blow away the fumes, who knows, to walk into the waves until nothing of them was left but the two furling smoke clouds of their inextinguishable briars.
Then I would be slapdashing home. The gravy smell of the dinners of others, the bird smell, the brandy, the pudding and milk coiling up to my nostrils, when out of a snow-clogged side lane would come a boy the spit of myself,
with a pink-tipped cigarette and the violet past of a black eye, cocky as a bullfinch, leering all to himself.
I hated him on sight and sound, and would be about to put my dog whistle to my lips and blow him off the face of Christmas,
When suddenly he, with a violent wink, put this whistle to his lips and blew so stridently, so high, so exquisitely loud that gobbling faces, their cheeks bulged with goose, would press against their tinseled windows the whole length of the white echoing street.
For dinner we had turkey and blazing pudding, and after dinner the uncles sat in front of the fire, loosened all buttons, put their large moist hands over their watch chains, groaned a little, and slept. Mothers and aunts and sisters scuttled to and fro, bearing tureens.
Auntie Bessie, who had already been frightened twice by a clockwork mouse, whimpered at the sideboard and had some elderberry wine. The dog was sick. Auntie Dosey had to have 3 aspirins, but Auntie Hannah, who liked port, stood in the middle of the snowbound backyard singing like a big bosomed thrush.
I would blow up balloons to see how big they would blow up too. And when they burst, which they always did, the young jumped and rumbled.
In the rich and heavy afternoon, the uncles breathing like dolphins and the snow descending.
I would sit among festoons and Chinese lanterns and nibble dates and try to make a model man of war, following the instructions for little engineers, and produce what might be mistaken for a sea-going tram car. Or I would go out.
My bright new boots squeaking into the white world onto the seaward hill to call on Jim and Dan and Jack and to pad through the still streets, leaving huge footprints on the hidden pavements.
I bet people would think there's been hippos.
What would you do if you saw a hippo coming down our street?
I'd go like this, bang, and I'd throw him over the railings and roll him down the hill, and then I'd tickle him under the ear and he'd wag his tail.
What would you do if you saw two hippos?
Iron flanked and bellowing he-hippos clanked and battered through the scudding snow towards us as we passed Mr. Daniel's house.
Let's post Mr. Daniel a snowball through his letterbox.
Let's write things in the snow.
Let's write, Mr. Daniel looks like a spaniel, all over his lawn.
Or we walked on the white shore.
Can the fishes see that it's snowing?
The silent, one-clouded heavens drifted onto the sea. Now we were snowblind travelers lost on the North Hills, and vast dewlap dogs with flasks round their necks ambled and shambled up to us, baying.
Excelsior!
We returned home through the poor streets where only a few children fumbled with bare red fingers in the wheel-rutted snow and catcalled after us, their voices fading away as we trudged uphill into the cries of the dock birds and the hooting of ships out in the whirling bay.
And then, at the tea, the recovered uncles would be jolly, and the ice cake loomed in the center of the table like a marble grave. Auntie Hannah laced her tea with rum because it was only once a year. Bring out the tall tales now that we told by the fire as the gaslight bubbled like a diver.
Ghosts wooed like owls in the long nights when I dared not look over my shoulder. Animals lurked in the cubbyhole, and the gas meter ticked. And I remember that we went singing carols once.
When there wasn't the shaving of a moon to light the flying streets, at the end of a long road was a drive that led to a large house, and we stumbled up the darkness of the drive that night, each of us afraid, each one holding a stone in his hand in case, and all of us too brave to say a word. The wind through the trees made noises as of old and unpleasant and maybe web-footed men wheezing in caves. We reached the black bulk of the house.
Oh, what shall we give him? Hark the herald?
No!
Jack said.
Good King Wenceslas, I'll count to 3. 1, 2, 3.
And we began to sing, our voices high and seemingly distant in the snow-felted darkness round the house that was occupied by nobody we knew. We stood close together near the dark door.
Good King looked out on the feast of Stephen.
And then a small, dry voice, like the voice of someone who has not spoken for a long time, joined our singing. A small, dry, eggshell voice from the other side of the door. A small, dry voice through the keyhole.
Good King Wenceslas looked out on the feast of Stephen.
And when we stopped running, we were outside our house. The front room was lovely. Balloons floated under the hot water bottled gulping gas. Everything was good again and shone all over the town.
Perhaps it was a ghost.
Jim said.
Perhaps it was trolls.
Dan said, who was always reading.
Let's go in and see if there's any jelly left.
Jack said, and we did that.
Always on Christmas night, there was music. An uncle played the fiddle, a cousin sang Cherry Ripe, and another uncle sang Drake's Drum.
It was very warm in the little house. Auntie Hannah, who had got on to the parsnip wine, sang a song about bleeding hearts and death, and then another in which she said her heart was like a bird's nest, and then everybody laughed again.
And then I went to bed. Looking through my bedroom window out into the moonlight and the unending smoke-colored snow,
I could see the lights in the windows of all the other houses on our hill and hear the music rising from them up the long, steadily falling night.
I turned the gas down. I got into bed. I said some words to the close and holy darkness, and then I slept.
The end. Bravo, bravo, cast. Thank you very, very, very much. I would like to remind everybody that in the cast was Mike Reynolds as Dylan, Rich Lamoury as Jim, and the two of them have been in every single one of the readings we've done over these 11 years. John Kerr played the voice on the other side of the keyhole, and Julia Evelyn, Lisa Sandine Shuba, and Warner Marshall were our three narrators. Way to go, everybody. Thank you so much. And now it's a time for us to have maybe some discussion and some Q&A. So I'd like the audience, first of all, to go back and turn your video on so we can see you. And now go to gallery view so we can see all the people on gallery view. And then whenever you would like to speak or raise a question or make a comment, raise your finger and I'll try to call on you, and then you can, oh, it's so good to see Luke here.
Bob.
You're muted, Bob.
You're muted, Bob.
Luke, so good to see you here. Would you be willing to say just a short word about Anna Foster, who this program is in dedication to?
Thank you, Bob. Today you did such a wonderful job giving a homily in honor of her at the interment. As you know, it's hard to have a funeral or a memorial service these days. So we had the honor of bringing the family of Anna together, her children and grandchildren, at least some of them. Anna has been with us at Trinity for many decades, from the altar guild to the Trinity players, and then at many cooking occasions she was quite the cuisine connoisseur. And I don't know if you remember her wonderful Welsh dinner at this play, at this evening, another years. It's for all of us, for the family at first, it's coming as a shock. The family were showing pictures of Anna. They had a family gathering this past Saturday, and she was strong, healthy, enjoying life. And so that's how she is remembered at this moment, to have such a well of life in herself, the taste for life, a circle of friends. It's fantastic to see that Anna live on in everyone who has known her with such, I would say, liveliness. She was a wonderful, wonderful lady, and we'll miss her terribly. So thank you for dedicating this evening to her, Bob, and thank you for everything you have done today for the family.
You're welcome, Luke. Now, again, how many of you have never seen the Trinity Players Child's Christmas before? Would you raise your hand so I can sort of see you? Okay, all right. And that means the rest of you have seen it at least once before. We've had some people, who have seen it many, 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 many times. So now we're going to have a little bit of a discussion and/or Q&A, and I'm being joined by Neil Olson, our dramaturge, who also is the one who adapted Dylan Thomas, for the 6 readers as we do it in this kind of platform reading. So first of all, would anybody have any questions or like to make any comments or to get them started? Speak up or raise your hand. Or
I would.
Okay.
Go ahead.
John Deming, go ahead.
Well, I have a technical question. Were you afraid that Rich was going to say something terrible? Because there seemed to be a little bit of a delay on between his voice and his visual.
No, we
About John.
We didn't have a muzzle on him.
I never say terrible things.
It looks like Lois Reed has got her hand up.
I am dying to speak. I have been in Mexico every time you've done this.
Right.
And this year, of course, I'm not in Mexico, and I love Dylan Thomas, and I am so happy to have seen it at last. And it is glorious. All of you were wonderful. And I thank you for finally bringing Christmas into my lockdown.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. And of course, we're so thrilled to have John Kerr play the role behind the hole that Anna played all those years. And as most of you know, John is an equity actress who has played in lots of national companies and is an amazing actress who has somewhat lost her voice. And so it was great to have her find the role. It was just perfect for her. I nominate her for a Tony.
Here.
I'll second that.
I was going to say
that was perfect, Son.
Lois,
Andrea?
Lois, I did what you say. I'm the long lost Sandine from the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, and I haven't been able to attend any of the Christmas performances. And so it was so amazing. I mean, actually, I'm in New Haven, but it's been wonderful with Zoom to be connected with all of you and to be part of the performance and to be back in my father's life here locally and to be surrounded by all of you who I love so much. So thank you with this transition. And it was a load of fun.
I can tell that many of the actors have done it before because they were very professional.
Thank you very much. I have to say though that we missed Margie Lemery this year, who has done it many, many times, but was, because of COVID, was so busy with her teaching, she wasn't able to join us. But we'll get her back again sometime, I'm sure. Any members of the cast want to speak up about what this play means to you, or maybe we should hear from the dramaturge in terms of what he thinks about all this?
Well, it's a lovely memory play that you should know, though, that apparently Dylan Thomas, I met a friend of mine a few years back. She was 20 years older than me. And I happened to mention we were thinking of doing the play. And she said, Dylan Thomas? I knew him when we evacuated from London. He was a nasty boy. So,
what a great poet.
He was clearly writing about himself.
Well, I think he was worse than he remembered in this play. So yeah, throwing snowballs at cats was the least of it. But
yes.
But then who wouldn't want to do that, Yeah. So,
Mike, you have played Dylan every time we've done this.
Well,
And
11 years now, yeah.
and it always moves me very, very much because in my mind you always come up with some fresh ways of understanding some of those lines, which is what makes you an especially talented actor.
Well, thanks. It's really huh?
Tell us what you think about the role.
Well, this is a very complicated guy. You have to consider that Dylan Thomas drank himself to death at the age of 35.
Mhm.
And here he is within 10 years of that, thinking back on when he was a 7-year-old. So I always see a guy running for a bus, right? A guy desperate to catch up with a memory that's always eluding him and torturing himself with the fact that he can never catch it. So there's this undercurrent of melancholia behind all the shenanigans, behind all the pranks, behind all of the reminiscences of his family, the ones he loves and the ones that annoy him to death. But one in which he's chasing a joy he can never catch and knows it. And I think killed himself over it.
Wow, very powerful. Andrea Osmond is here, the beloved daughter, one of the beloved daughters of Anna Foster. Would you say a word about what this event meant to your mother, if you were up to that?
Yes, it was a real highlight of her year every year. She loved planning the meals. She was always looking for new, exciting recipes to try out, and then wringing her hands as the time approached. Why did I sign up for this? But she just loved the work, and she just loved the whole atmosphere, the lovely, the whole setup, and then slipping behind the curtain to be the little dry voice. But Jean, you were perfect. She would have been thrilled with your little dry voice. It was a worthy tribute. And I'm really glad I caught it this year again. I'm one of those who saw it many times, from behind the counter somewhere, dishing up food. One of the slaves.
We're so grateful for Anna's children who would help us.
Well, we were all dragged kicking and screaming into it, but secretly we enjoyed ourselves.
Christy Stang has never seen it before. What are your reactions, Christy?
I loved it. I thought it was very charming. I loved all the hats and the backgrounds and everything, and just the whole attitude of it. It was really fun.
Thanks so much. We want to get you in one of these productions sometime soon, Christy. Okay.
I think the Zoom format works very well for this.
It actually did, yeah.
Really?
I'm glad to hear it. But Neil, our dramaturg says that we really got to get back to supper theater next year, because that's part of the great thing about this is to be together to celebrate during the holiday season.
And you need the audience needs their reaction. The laugh lines are so much better when you're all there.
Oh, that's true.
There was like 54 people on the conference call, but you wouldn't know it from the reading just went on. So it'd be nice to have it live.
David Rivera, one of the
David,
sometime Trinity player. Go ahead, unmute, David.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, everyone. It's a blessing to be here with you all this evening, and I just want to say thank you. This is always something I look forward to every year as a former Trinity player and a former member of Trinity. I'm glad that an 11-year tradition could continue on Zoom.
Yes.
And I will say that when the part from behind, behind the door, behind the curtain came up, and Jean, you did a great job. I did cry a little bit because I was thinking of Anna. And she was a wonderful lady. She'll be deeply missed.
Thanks.
And excellent, and just Excellent job, everyone. It's so good to see so many familiar faces. But we do need to get back. Hopefully, we can get back together in person next year.
Oh, yeah.
Bigger and better than ever.
I certainly hope so. And
Vaccines.
I'd also just like to mention that, as you probably can guess, that Juliet is with us again this year, and she's Jean's daughter. And as you can tell that she also has that professional talent that we so admire and are so glad to have her with us again this year. Thank you, Juliet.
Juliet, you were fabulous.
Oh, thank you. This was so fun for me because this is my, I think, 4th or 5th year doing this, but to get to do it with my mom was really special tonight.
Yeah.
She and I years ago have been in a number of plays together, but it was just really lovely to get to do this with you.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that our lines were back to back, you know, that I could feed you the line that led into your line. It was really fun. And I will also say that my father is a classical Shakespearean actor, and one of his very favorite poets is Dylan Thomas.
Oh,
The
great.
words are
He
glorious.
was here with me tonight
Great.
too.
I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Walden for having two such great singers as Carolyn and Kyle in our midst. And I want to ask you, will you do everything you can to keep them around, please? Okay. Other comments or questions or discussion items? We still have more time before we conclude with two more beautiful songs from Kyle and Carolyn.
Bob,
Good job,
I'd just like to thank you for casting me as Jimmy. Most of the time, people are telling me to stop being so childish. But in this, I get to be very childish, and I get applauded for it.
Okay, it looks like one of my.
Bob, you're muted.
You're muted yourself, Bob.
It's like one of my sons, Chris from Brooklyn, had his hand up. Chris, did you want to?
Oh, I was just going to say, great job, Lisa, on her first time, especially on Zoom. It's always hard when you're doing it on Zoom.
You know, and the funny thing is that when John actually first did her line, I was so excited that I almost forgot my line followed her. So I was a little bit John, it was so excited to see you part of the actual cast. So thank you.
So Sean and I say kudos to everyone. It was really thank you.
And the imagery and the poetry actually reminded me of my past Christmas, so it was wonderful. Aunts and uncles and snow and the water.
Oh yes, thank you. Eleanor Tigner, as you know, is a professor of literature. What do you have to say, Eleanor?
Did I unmute myself?
Yeah.
Well, I've been waiting to see this because every year it's always on a Saturday evening. And when Bob says to me, "What are you coming?" and my answer is, "No, I have to be up for the 7:45 service. I can't go out on Saturday night." So it was just so marvelous to be able to see this. It was a perfect production in every way. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for being with us. We always look forward to having you at any Trinity Players event of any kind, and we look forward to the African American reading this year. Maybe it'll be on Zoom also. What do you think?
Yes, it will. And
Okay.
I've already given that information in the annual report.
Okay,
and then Kyle will soon be getting information from me to put in e-news because I do have it planned out for each of you to be included.
And the Trinity Players would love to be part of that again if we may.
Yes, we can't have it without you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Happy Hanukkah, Deborah Bavolsky. You are one of the non-goys who most often comes to this event. Thank you for continuing to support us. Got anything to say? Got to unmute. Unmute. Unmute.
In the bottom,
There you go.
Okay, I always love this, although I do miss the community food. Lisa was a wonderful addition, and thank you for letting me join the Trinity family. This is a wonderful experience and really, really proves the whole warmth and lovingness of the Christmas season. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Okay. Anyone else want to speak up? Manuel.
Yeah, I want to say something.
Yes.
So I've heard it a couple of times in previous years, and it was always beautiful. But I think that this time on Zoom, there's some quality to it that makes it really special. And the speaking parts were so well audible, and you could hear every word. So it was really, really good.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations to all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you also for your help with the service this afternoon for Anna. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any last comments or questions? Questions for the actors? Questions for the playwright? Neil? All right. Then we're going to conclude with, again, two beautiful, beautiful songs from our two singers. First of all, Kyle, you're up.
Oh, holy night, the stars are bright shining. It is the night of the dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angel voices, oh, night divine, oh, night when Christ was born, oh, night divine, oh, night divine. Led by the light of faith serenely beaming, with glowing hearts by his cradle we stand. So led by light of a star sweetly gleaming, here came the wise men from far eastern land. The King of Kings lay thus in lonely manger, in all our trials, born to be our friend. He knows our need. He guards us from all danger. Behold your King before the lowly band. Behold your King King. Before him bend, fall on your knees. Oh, hear the angel voices. Oh, night divine, oh, night when Christ was born. Oh, night divine, oh, night, oh, night
Bravo, bravo, Kyle. And I'd also like to thank Kyle, who was our technical director for this production. And now, Carolyn, before you sing your final carol, would you say a word to us about what it is?
Sure. I'm going to sing Silent Night, but I looked up the first verse in Welsh, which, if any of you speak Welsh, I'm sorry. I don't really, but I transcribed a couple of recordings. So I've just had fun doing it and hope that you all will enjoy hearing it. So please feel free to sing along when we get to the English, but on mute. Still stay on mute. Thank you.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Carolyn. Brava.
Thank you.
Brava. And now we conclude this beautiful evening with our beloved Assistant Rector, Heidi Thorson, will lead us in the benediction. Heidi?
May the sun of righteousness shine upon you and scatter the darkness from before your path. May your life carry on the light of those who lived before us. And the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be among you and remain with you always.
God bless and good Yule. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Good to see you.
Good night, everybody.
Bob.
Merry Christmas.